I want you to think about who is the number one person in your career, the mentor who's going to take you all the way through, beginning to end, be that perfect guide. Stop, reflect for a second, and then think again, because you're not going to have that one single person. You need to be developing 4 key relationships throughout your career. So I started here at Parveda right out of college, and I've worked my way up to manager. And what brought me here, like a lot of us, was our focus on mentoring, growth, personal development, really bringing us all up together. And because we're Parveda, we have tools, we have frameworks. We have frameworks to tell you when to use your frameworks. And all of them are focused on our growth. It's fantastic. But we don't necessarily always have a really clear picture of what we need to do to build those relationships and bring our career forward. So let's think about what we do have to begin with. We all have assigned mentors. And people in the project leadership roles are expected to be good coaches, too. We've got a lot of important pieces. But over the past 10 years, there's been some really interesting and exciting research on the relationships that build careers most effectively. Our expectations framework was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, so we capture those important pieces. But there are also other relationships that are implicit or a little bit outside the expectations framework or our company in general. So let's look through 4 key roles we're here to talk about today. Number 1 is your sponsor, your advocate, the person who goes into places you can't go and fights for you. The second one, we'll call him a navigator, maybe more of a traditional mentor. And that's your guide through tough new situations where they have experience. Third, we have the coach. That is the person who's helping you through deliberate practice as you build up new skills, break bad habits, and form the ones that will bring you forward. And finally, there's your friend. And that's just someone who keeps you grounded and helps you look at the bigger picture in life. So let's step back about 20 years. In the late 90s, McKinsey & Company released an incredibly influential report called The War for Talent. So back at this point, the first dot-com boom was really taking off. Organizations realized they needed people who understood how to work and shape information. They needed talent. And recruiting talent is great. Experienced hires are great. But getting perfect experienced hires every time is impossible. So what you have to do? You have to grow your people. And so that has shaped a lot of where we are today at Parveda and our industry. We're knowledge workers, and we need to build that knowledge and help each other rise up. So organizations realized we got to have mentoring programs. This isn't a little thing on the side. It needs to be part of our organization. Now, a few years after that, a lot of organizations have rolled out formal mentoring. They match up junior and senior people. We do that here at Parveda really well. It's a core part of who we are. But if we look at it in the larger industry context, it's not as effective as some people had hoped. We've looked at research and investigation, and there's huge career benefits from mentoring programs. But there's one key gap when you go back and look at the original programs that inspired this. Sponsorship. Mentors weren't just experienced, they also had positional power. So the first key relationship I'm here to talk about is sponsorship. Someone who goes into a place where you can't, goes behind the closed-door meetings you don't get into, and advocates for you. So this is a mutual relationship. Your sponsor advocates for you, and then you both get the job done, and you both look like superstars. You both deliver effective results. So I want to give an example here. An associate here in Dallas who was interested in design thinking and user-centered design. This person, she went past going to the trainings, she took part in the design thinking challenge, but then she also, and here's the key, worked with the principals in her office and said, I want to work with you. I want to work in the design thinking space. She was very explicit about where she wanted to be involved. A few weeks later, they were looking to staff an opportunity, and they knew exactly who to go to for the associate to put in that role. They knew her skills, they knew her interest, and they knew who they were going to put in that space. Now, she's a recognized expert in Dallas, and she's not far off from being able to sponsor others herself. So exactly how that looks is different for each office and each person. So just for instance, in the QA process, your Parveda mentor is your sponsor. They might not be saying, this person has to be promoted right away all the time, even if that's what you want, but they're looking out for your career success behind those closed doors. Other spaces, though, are a little bit less well-defined. One of the key ones we have here is the staffing process. So, for instance, in the Seattle office, managers and up are directly involved. So every Parveda mentor is in the room. Your mentor is your sponsor there. Some other offices, that's handled by the management team. And so if you're a consultant or associate, then you need to be developing relationships with the principals in the office to help you through. So, 3 key takeaways for how to make that as effective as possible. Number 1, just know what you want to do and where you want to go. And look for a relationship that'll take you there. It's usually not too hard to find the people who are working in the spaces you want to work and are a little more senior. Number 2, once you start establishing that sponsorship relationship, make sure your sponsor has information to tell a good story about you, why you're the right person to be in that space, and why you're going to make them look great. And finally, be sure to make explicit asks. It's really easy to fall into the trap of, oh, it'd be really nice if I could have something. But if you go in and you say, here's where I want to go, then your sponsor can help figure out, is that realistic? How can you both work well to get there? So when you're looking to go at it from the other side, looking to sponsor someone else, number 1, seek out their interest, draw out their goals, and look for the beginnings of a success story. So find those people and be an explicit advocate for them. Remember, they can't go to the places that you as a sponsor can go. And remember, no matter what side of the relationship you're on, the goal is to build connections and the partnership that develops talent. That's why we're all here. So sponsorship is a really key role, but it's not the only one by a long shot. There is still a ton of value in what we could call a traditional mentor, but I'm going to call a navigator here just to make sure we don't cross our vocabulary up. And what this person is they are a veteran who communicates their experience to a new person. So we all change roles here. And it's not just your assigned Parveda mentor. That person can be really effective in that space, but it's not just them. It's anybody who has been through a tough situation before, can help you through that situation and keep your head above water and get to thriving. So when we're looking at sponsorship, that has a real core dependence on institutional power. Navigation really doesn't. A consultant can be a navigator for a principal, and that is a great thing to have happen. So I'll give an example of that, too. On one of my teams, we had a recent college hire, and she was a few months into her project, and the client needed someone who could figure out Terraform in Azure. So working in the DevOps space, fairly new for her, but she dove right in. She ran into a lot of challenges and faced her way through them, and built out some hard-won expertise. Now, the clients are coming to her. The principals on our account depend on her in that space to tell her, is this realistic? How can we plan this? And even folks from across the company who have been selling these opportunities, same thing. So don't be afraid to embrace your expertise or admit your limits at any level. This is a fantastic way by playing both sides of that role to help build your career. Now, when you're looking for someone, that means you have to cast a wide net too. So reach out in your office. You can probably find experts there just by asking around. Also, across the firm, reach out on Slack and even LinkedIn. The skills section there, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but if you need to find somebody, it can do a good job. So, once you've identified the expert you want to work with, how can you be effective in that relationship? Well, first of all, put your word out in the network. Then use that person who responds to you as a sounding board when you're working with difficult problems. And you want to be a clear lens into the problem, not necessarily bring all of your own, bring your expertise, but not your judgment. And finally, ask lots of questions. Validate. If something looks funny, it's because either you don't understand it or it's a really thorny problem that you need an expert's help. So keep it open. Don't ever let yourself shut down a line of curiosity. And from the other side of that, look for places once you have expertise where you can help. That's key for growing your career at every level. Make sure that you're covering both the big picture and the little details that only come from experience. And finally, let that discussion go wide and range everywhere. It's very easy to get sort of tactical and results focused, but you're going to be the most effective teacher if you can show the why as well as the how. So that's taken us through 2 key personas. The third, let's look at coaching a little bit. This is a person who is guiding you through deliberate practice and really honing your skills to be as effective as you can be, helping you target those habits or making sure that you have someone who can help you through specific areas. So it's a little different from that navigator role because your navigator is providing input into where you want to go. This person is really just there day to day in a supervisory relationship. So usually we know exactly who this is. It's going to be whoever's above you in the org chart, and what we want to do here is learn how to make this relationship effective. So how can we do that? Number 1, be mindful of where you need to grow. Ask your coach for help and look at how you can target that. Make sure you've got regular one-on-one time with this person so they can give you the feedback you need. If that slips, because it's probably going to slip, we're all really busy, then make a deliberate effort to keep that on the calendar. Work with your coach to identify the next incremental step. And finally, this is really important, leave your ego behind. Getting critical feedback, that is rough. And so realize you might have an emotional response to that. It's okay, we're human. It's not a judgment about you as a person, but it's still something you need to be mindful of because once you get into that sort of space, you're going to reject feedback and it's not going to be as effective as it could be. From the other side, being an effective coach, well, you're probably in a leadership role at Paraveda, manager, principal, vice president. And so you have access to a huge array of tools. Find what works for you. You can use tools like WholeBrain and PI to see what's going to work best to help adjust someone and get them to the next level. You can use Drop as a more tactical tool and a framework that helps you remember to isolate those habits and work through them. Make sure to carve out some time and mental space for your people. Again, we all get super busy. It's easy to let it drop. Don't. And finally, remember from your side that the emotional aspect can be rough for folks. So make sure you have a balance of positive and negative feedback. And because when there's no target for improvement, it's easy to just brush past things. And when you're really pushing hard, you can put in a little too much silver lining. So if somebody has some serious issues, then you sort of wrap it up a little too nice. Or if somebody is doing great, then you can say, okay, you're doing great. Everybody knows that. Let's focus on all the little things you did wrong. Make sure to adjust that and target it appropriately. Now, finally, here's one that isn't really covered by the EF, the expectations framework. We've gone through sponsorship, navigation, coaching, but there's still a missing element. We're really lucky to work where we work. We have safe, comfortable jobs. We work indoors, usually in a climate-controlled space that isn't uncomfortable one direction or another. We're not at the risk of some huge on-the-job accident. But for all that, it's still really stressful sometimes. We live on the learning edge, So you might remember that graph that says, at the lower end, when you're not working very hard, it's easy to get bored. You go too high, you get stressed out and you can't learn. And you have to find a happy medium between them. But it's easy for us to fall into the overwhelming zone. Sometimes you fix that by escalating it through a formal channel. You go through, you say, hey, here's a risk, it's stressing me out, and then you're done. You can escalate that, you handle the problem, let's go have dinner. Other times, it doesn't work like that. You have a risk that just sits there, stresses you out, pushes you into more and more work, but you don't need a solution every single time. What you need is someone who understands where you're at and who validates what you're going through. And maybe someone who can see when you've been struggling for a little while and help you break out of it. Say either, okay, chin up, you're going to get through this, you just got to put in the work, or, wow, you have been struggling for a long time on this, you need to reach out and really work with people because this is not working for you. These are key things to be cognizant of. And needing them is not a weakness. Sometimes it's easy to fall into that, but we're human beings. We need air and water and food to survive and keep our bodies running, and we need this level of validation to keep our brains running and stay sane. So, what is this person? Who is really going to be the most effective in this role? Well, the interesting thing here, you need to find someone who is not on your day-to-day project, for sure. Maybe not even at Paraveda, maybe not even in the technology industry. Because if you start working with someone and looking for them for emotional support on your day-to-day project, it is going to fall instantly into a problem-solving mode where they try to fix everything when maybe what you need is someone to help you see a bigger picture. So it just needs to be someone where you have firm trust and a little bit of separation from your day-to-day that you're trying to get through. So let's go back through and look at the 4 folks you need to be working with to ensure you've got the right direction for your career growth. Number 1, the sponsor, the advocate who can speak up for you in the space you can't enter. Number 2, the navigator, your experienced guide through thorny problems. Number 3, the coach, who's helping you adjust what you're doing step by step on the way to growth. And finally, your friend, someone who keeps your emotional response evened out and keeps your head in the game. So what I'd like to ask everyone here to do now is think about how are you playing these roles for other people and who's playing those roles in your life. If you don't have people that you can put into each of these spaces, then really think about how you can develop that. And as you grow through your career, make sure that you are at a level where you're playing that role for as many other people as possible, and how to develop those relationships from both ends. Thank you very much.